Okay, I would like to rehash this common ancestor thing. Um, I had made a previous video on it, but I keep getting these questions on how it works, and it's interesting how people will ask you questions, but they won't let you know who they are. They don't want to know. They don't want you to know who they are. In other words, they don't have um, an account that identifies who they are. Not that they have to put out where they're from or anything, but they don't show any information about who they are, and they're asking me questions. So I have to explain to them. I have to give them an answer, and just for the record, um, I'll get something like this. Somebody asks me a question, I go look to see who it is, and it says this channel doesn't have any content. Which is understandable. I mean, if you're a scientist or something, if you're a biologist and you're asking me questions about the common ancestry, you know, between chimps and apes, chimps and humans, and whether or not I think humans came from chimps or not, questions like that. So I gave a response to this individual, this nice little sock puppet. It's amusing, but Anyway, so I gave a response to this person, this individual, and so I'll just go ahead and read the response probably. Maybe that'll be a better thing to do. So this is going to be a rehash on common ancestors. The differences between humans, quote unquote differences between humans, are that they have different numbers of copies of the same information. Okay. Now sometimes you have to stop and think about what we're reading. Humans look different. To us they look different, but they're really just a shuffling of the same information. It's the same information that's shuffled around or being expressed. The expressions are being shuffled around. Let me just go ahead and read it first. Chimps, on the other hand, have copies of information from another ancestor, obviously. So they have information that is essential to their viability that we do not have or need. We also have information copied from our ancestors that is essential to our viability that chimps do not have or need to live. Okay, in reproduction, there's a shuffling of information that is being expressed so that what is expressed in you is not necessarily expressed in your children and could be expressed in your grandchildren. You ever see the phenomena of children or kids looking like their grandparents? Well, this is the reason. The point being is that the information is not lost. So we don't have the kind of variation that we keep on varying. We're just shuffling the same information. In other words, we're actually different numbers of copies of the same information, so that different characteristics are being expressed. And everyone reproduces after their kind. So, and we get a lot of flack for saying everything reproduces after its kind. but it's a fact because everything is copied. We are copies of our ancestors. This is very important to understand. Okay, so no information is lost, and we are copies of our ancestors. Of course, there are mistakes, and we can see the mistakes in just look at our face. We can see mistakes, or different defects that we might have. Okay, the point is that since we are copies of our ancestors, there will be no extraneous instruction in our genome such as we do find in chimps. Oh, here we go again with all this stuff here. I keep forgetting. Keep forgetting to turn this volume down. Okay. Then when I need to go use the volume, then I don't have the volume. Okay. Anyway, so now we're not talking about just little bits of information here. So until they can show how volumes of instruction got there, that is in the chimp, that we don't have, volumes of instruction chimps don't have that we don't have, or how we got vast amounts of instruction that chimps do not have, they cannot claim that we have an ancestor in common with chimps. Not that we're evolved from chimps. We do not even have an ancestor in common with chimps because they are copies of another ancestor. We are copies of humans. Chimps are copies of chimps. They have their information and we have our information that is copied. We are copies of our ancestors. Chimps are copies of their ancestors. They have information that we don't have, that they need and we do not need, and we have information that we have that we need that chimps do not need, which means we were not copied from the same common ancestor. Both chimps and humans have extraneous instruction that the other does not have, so that we are not copied from the same common ancestor. We do not have an ancestor in common with chimps. It's that simple. It's not complicated. Okay, people, we could have cleared this up a long time ago, but these biologists are just really being horrible people. And, it's just something that we need to get straight. We need to get the facts straight that we are not copied from the same ancestor that chimps are copied from. And the same holds true, of course, for every other animal in the animal kingdom. There is no evolution because everything is what it's directed to be, and it cannot be anything other than what it has written instructions to be. And each organism has its own information that other organisms do not have. They reproduce after their kind, exactly as the Bible says. That is the scientific statement as to how things reproduce. Things reproduce by copying the information that is there. So when you copy information that is there, you are not going to have information that another organism has, because another organism was made to be something different. It was made to have a different place or purpose in the animal kingdom. So everything is what it is directed to be, and nothing can ever be what it has no written instructions to be. It's not complicated. It's not complicated. I'm just changing my slides, because this is what I do. No, I have a bunch of slides here, but it only shows 9 at a time, so I have to delete some, so I can see the rest of my slides. These, of course, are living organisms that were buried by the global flood that happened, over 4,000 years ago. Maybe about 4,400 years ago. So, these particular fossils were buried in, obviously, water deposited sediments that were heat treated. They were heated and became marble, and you can go see them in Orlando International Airport in Florida if you would like. There's belemnites, like this one here is a belemnite. It's like a cross section. There's soft-bodied animals like this one here, some kind of could be an eel or a jellyfish or anything, it could be a lot of things. It's hard to know. I would like to get somebody to tell me what these things are. Could be a fish, could be parts of a fish or something. Could be just about anything. But they were buried by the global flood, and all history goes back to the time of the global flood, which also disproves evolution, because that's their supposed evidence of evolution, things morphing from one thing to another, but it's not possible, because I just explained that things are copied from their ancestors. They're copied. They cannot get the information that other organisms have. It's not hard to understand. It's easy to understand that evolution is a lie. So what we need to do is just remove it entirely from every educational institution that there is, and just keep on hammering these people that keep pushing their fantasy, because their fantasy is not based in reality. The reality is that we are copied from our original kind. We are copies of the humankind. Everything else is copied from its own kind. And there is no way to get the information to be any other thing. There is vast amounts of instruction between organisms that there is no way of acquiring. It's just not possible. It's just totally absurd. These people must have a low IQ, either that or they've been lied to and they believe a lie. But the people, the biologists and stuff, either they're self-deluded, which they probably are, or they're just flat out lying to you. But we need to explain this, that everything is copied from its original kind, and that it cannot get instructions to be any other thing, because written instructions do not glean from thin air. Organisms cannot get written instruction from thin air to be any other thing other than what they have copied instruction to be. So let God be found true, though every man is a liar.